Hello, dear participants of the seminar. Today, it's a wonderful day. Today, it's a new year that has started the new cycle of 2022, and we start our research of the second stanza of the book. So, the International Scientific Symposium dedicated to the secret doctrine studies will be held with participation of Russian and international theosophists and scientists. And today work with the interpreters Olga Tomchuk, Tatiana Kostenko, Sergei Nasetkin, Maria Ponomaryova, and we thank them standing for translating from English into Russian so that we are all in the same field of understanding. So, dear friends, the research of the second stanza in the new cycle of this year today, and we congratulate you with this great event. And it is coincided with the fact that in the new year we start to study the second stanza. This is a coincidence of the periods is very significant. We congratulate you, wish you fruitful work. So the scientific seminar, international seminar for secret doctrine studies is open. And I give the floor, the introductory word to Vladimir Yary, Theosophical Society of Russia, the president of Adamant Lodge, and the director of the Moscow School of Theosophy. Hello, dear friends. I'm very grateful for your participation. The knowledge is necessary for us. They transform us and to develop our personality. What would I like to tell today about the principles and nidanas of today? Before, I would like to preface it by the fact that the Kalachakra calendar, which is just there behind me, this calendar tells us about the quality of time, about the cyclic nature of time, and the nature of time. Also, there is a Kalachakra Tantra, and we should not confuse them. These are two important details of the teaching. But in Kalachakra calendar, there is its own mantra and its own tantra. In other words, Kalachakra Tantra has three main qualities: external, internal, and secret or hidden. The same we may say about Kalachakra calendar. And there we have three main factors: external, internal, and secret. Of course, the initiation or illumination happens, occurs when we synthesize in ourselves all these three aspects. Then we go up to the higher tantra, which is called Kalachakra Tantra. As a matter of fact, Kalachakra symbolizes our consciousness in one or another period of time, considering the necessity of the day, week, year, months. We have the connections of the reasons, and they are called nidanas, such as karma, according to the laws of karma, or according to the laws of human consciousness, consciousness of humanity, influences a person at certain hours of time. And according to these hours, today we have the following combination of the nidanas. If we consider the era of Aquarius, it is symbolized by blue monkey. The era of Aquarius is something that provides us with the possibility of transformation of our astral body, creating a higher combination of our flow in which we enter. And this flow is the flow of life or teaching when our consciousness has an impetus till the turn of this consciousness, or before its awakening, the awakening of the consciousness. By awakening our consciousness, we will achieve the liberation. And we must say this is the necessary condition and the idea that every one of us aspires to liberation from the shackles, from the darkness, from ignorance. We should get rid of them to be free. And the basis of all is our connection on the world of forms where we were born. We should get liberated from them. And the blue monkey symbolizes the beauty of thought, the beauty of impulse. Such the area of Aquarius is defined on the calendar, the quality of thought, the quality of impetus. And it means we should be responsible. And the time itself lets us get associated with the quality of time in the way that uh, being in a hurry without being too quick, the time when we enter in its nature, its core, the time itself makes us a continuous, perpetual servant of this higher thought or idea of liberation. At the same time, we fulfill our duties, all our duty, we fulfill it, of course, and naturally by accumulating, acquiring the experience and mastership of expressing of our inner person, expressing of this very high, pure thought. Uh, Next, to talk about the century of the white dragon, which means the complete wisdom, the year of the black tiger, which means the birth of a new person, the month of the white mouse. The mouse itself is a symbol of karma, action, and accumulation. And these accumulations of the white mouse in its completed state, it means this month we may feel something that we have gathered as experience so that it helps us to liberate our consciousness. The week of the white horse, the horse is a symbol of justice, and the yellow color is the earth or buddhi, which is not the earth we walk on, but the earth, the symbol of mind or the capacity of mind to attach, to consider, which leads to understanding. And this quality is something that belongs to the yellow horse. Uh, Thus, justice, horse, and yellow color, wisdom, tell us that the justice and wisdom will be with us during the whole week, and they will uh, incite us, push us towards accepting this wisdom law, and so that we'll try to understand it synthetically, the reality of this world. The day of the white horse. Look, we see the two horses meeting together, the wisdom in this world. The white horse is the symbol of completed wisdom. It means that in a very acute way, all the humanity feels the justice of its actions. For somebody, it is very hard, or somebody, it's very light. So it depends on the accumulations uh, uh, that the humanity has acquired while trying to understand the laws of the existence. and wisdom. The thought of the day today is the following. He who neglects his duty to his conscience will neglect to pay his debt to his neighbor. You see, it is about responsibility. And the responsibility, first of all, lets us discipline our mind and our aspirations, the impulses that arises in us by the conditions, our environment, our family, all these external conditions, and how we accept them, what is our attitude to them. What was the first thought that came to us about these conditions? Very good if this thought is a noble one, pure one, and light one. Then in us there will be the movement of this cosmic law, and the wheel of our consciousness will accumulate noble experience for liberation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. Now we know what the thought of the day was provided us by Elena Petrovna Blavatsky, so that we know these energies, these siddhanas, and we continue our seminar. The first lecturer who will open this seminar is our colleague, Theosophist William Wilson Quinn, Theosophical Society of the United States of America, California. Mr. Quinn, you're welcome. The floor is yours.
The title of this presentation is Notes on Stanza 2, Sloka 1 of the Stanzas of Dhyan. My name is William Wilson Quinn. Unlike the substantive content of stanza 2, Sloka 1 of the Stanzas of Dhyan, reproduced and partially clarified in The Secret Doctrine by Helena P. Blavatsky, or HPB, the structure of this verse is relatively simple. It is comprised of a single question in part A and a response to that question in part B. The question posed is, quote, "Where were the builders, the luminous sons of the manvantaric dawn?" Question mark. The response given in the shloka is that the builders were, quote, "in the unknown darkness, in their Ah-hi Paranishpanna, the producers of form, or rupa, from no form, or arupa, the root of the world. The Devamatri and the Svabhavat rested in the bliss of non-being." End quote. One will seek in vain to understand from a purely rational or intellectual standpoint either the question posed or its response as set forth in Sloka 1. It is upon the authority of HPB that this assertion is made, based upon her comments in the proem to Volume 1 of The Secret Doctrine, where she states that, quote, "The stage described in stanza 2 is, to a Western mind, so nearly identical with that mentioned in the first stanza that to express the idea of its difference would require a treatise in itself." End quote. The student may recall that HPB noted about the nearly identical state in the first stanza that, quote, "such a state can only be symbolized. To describe it is impossible." End quote. she adds to these caveats that, quote, hence it must be left to the intuition and the higher faculties of the reader to grasp, as far as he can, the meaning of the allegorical phrases used. Indeed, it must be remembered that all these stanzas appeal to the inner faculties rather than to the ordinary comprehension of the physical brain. End quote. Therefore, in order to apprehend in any degree the meaning of stanza 2, shloka 1, since it can only be symbolized because it is impossible to describe in words or even in thoughts, the student is obliged to utilize primarily his or her intuition and higher inner faculties to apprehend its meaning. In utilizing these inner faculties, the student will begin to apprehend that before there was motion in the utter stillness and quietude of chaos, or the boundless void and plenum of space, there was yet neither cosmos nor manifested cosmic energies that would come to fuel creation through a manvantara. At the moment of the first or divine breath, being the word or logos, as the first appearance of motion, the process of emergence from pralaya into manvantara began, taking seriatim, the form of numerically expanding emanations. As part of, and with these emanations emerged the builders and the cosmic forces and energies that begin to enable and shape the subtle or noumenal emanations to take phenomenal form in the realm of substance or matter. The first two stanzas in Volume 1 of The Secret Doctrine deal respectively with, first, the unconditioned and indescribable absolute or one all during pralaya, before the first breath or motion, and two, the dawn of differentiation or pre-swelling, as the inexorable though ineffable preparation toward emergence within the one all immediately prior to the primal ray flashing into the germ. The subtle difference between these states discussed in stanzas 1 and 2 is that stanza 2 pertains to a precursor state of cosmic ideation and not cosmic substance, and significantly is identified by HPB in her heading for stanza 2 in the contents page of The Secret Doctrine as, quote, the idea of differentiation, end quote. Once this subtlety is grasped by the student, it then allows for a more meaningful discussion of the question posed and response provided in stanza 2, shloka 1. Moving forward from this point in our study, the next requirement is to seek to define, as well as possible, the various Sanskrit terms of art in HPB's rendition of the stanzas. This is especially necessary since the response in Shloka 1b and the commentary on it rests on a familiarity with the difficult metaphysical concepts conveyed by these terms of art. The most significant of these terms are Paranishpanna, Devamatri, and Svabhavat. Another equally significant Sanskrit term appears in the commentary to Shloka 1b, which is Svasamvedana. The location, or the where, of the builders inquired about in Shloka 1a is, quote, in the unknown darkness of Paranishpanna, end quote, which HPB equates to, quote, the summum bonum, the absolute, hence the same as paranirvana, end quote. This is important to keep in mind because the absolute is an unconditioned state of non-being. So to the extent this is where the builders are at this stage, they are only there as potentialities of noumena or pre-cosmic ideation, well before their appearances as the sons of light or the Lipika in the later stanzas. Along with the builders, Shloka 1b suggests that this state is shared with, quote, the producers of form, rupa, from no form, arupa, end quote, that are, quote, the root of the world, end quote. The progenitive sources of these pre-noumenal entities as potentialities within the Absolute appear to be Devamatri and Svabhavat, which are said to be resting in the cosmic bosom of the bliss of non-being. In a footnote, HPB describes Devamatri as the, quote, mother of the gods, Aditi, or cosmic space, end quote. And she describes Svabhavat elsewhere as, quote, the world substance, or rather that which is behind it, the spirit and essence of substance. From it all nature proceeds, and into it all returns at the end of the life cycles. In esotericism, it is called Father-Mother. It is the plastic essence of matter, end quote. So, Devamatri and Svabhavat, resting together in the bliss of non-being of the Absolute at this stage of spiritual evolution, might be said to be the pre-cosmic ideational father-mother parental sources of the builders as the producers of form from no form. In roughly the same way as the structure of the shlokas of this stanza is relatively simple, being comprised of a single question in part A and a response to that question in part B, so is the structure of HPB's commentary to the two shlokas relatively simple. By this we mean that the commentary for Shloka 1a consists of several basic assertions. Those are that, first, the doctrine she promulgates, quote, deals only with our planetary system. Second, that the builders or sons of manvantaric dawn are both the real creators of the universe and the architects of our planetary system. Third, that the builders, which are also called watchers of the seven spheres, indicate a septenary correspondence among the seven planets, the seven spheres, and the seven eternities that are all mentioned in the first two stanzas. And finally, that there are numerous types of pralaya in the cosmogonic process, of which that of our solar system is only one. HBB's commentary for Shloka 1b is more subtle and pedagogic by comparison to Shloka 1a. Now armed with the definitions of its crucial Sanskrit terms, we are better able to understand her profound teaching in this shloka, where she notes that it is the state of paranirvana, or the absolute, that can lead one to appreciate correctly the full meaning of non-being, which is absolute being. This appreciation of non-being, however, must be seen as a consequence of Advaita consciousness, since only in the dualistic form of non-absolute being in manifestation does Aristotle's non-contradiction principle of reason apply. This is further supported by HPB's comment that sooner or later, quote, all that now seemingly exists will be in reality and actually in the unified state of Paranishpanna, end quote, which, as we know, is simply another term for Paranirvana, or the Absolute. Reversing this precept, one can as easily say that sooner or later, all latent potentialities pre-existing in the state of Paranishpanna, the Absolute, will, at the conclusion of its manvantaric emanations, be in reality and actually all that now seemingly exists. Finally, HPB concludes her teaching in stanza 2, Shloka 1, by noting that there is a great difference between conscious and unconscious being, which brings the teaching to the level of human beings, and thus within the grasp of students of esotericism. In this regard, she notes that the condition of Paranishpanna, or of Paranirvana, or the Absolute, without Paramartha, or divine self-consciousness, and the self-analyzing consciousness, or Svasamvedana, is no bliss, but simply extinction for 7 eternities. Bliss, or Ananda, therefore, can be said to be an epiphenomenon of the aggregation of conscious being with the characteristics of self-consciousness and, importantly, self-analyzing consciousness, a condition shared by Paranishpanna at a macrocosmic level and by humankind at a microcosmic level. It is also important to note that human beings, among all sentient creatures in manifestation, are unique in having a self-analyzing consciousness. Through the conscious absorption of these primordial truths, HPB allows in a powerful, conclusive statement that it is only with a mind clear and unpolluted by personality and, quote, assimilation of the merit of manifold existences or incarnations, end quote, within the collective living and manifest universe, that, quote, one gets rid of personal existence, end quote, and thus merges into and becomes one with the Absolute, thereafter continuing in full possession of divine self-consciousness. Even though contained within the text of the most profound expressions of cosmogenesis in the Secret Doctrine, this last statement of HPB points dramatically to the highest and principal purpose or goal of the genesis of the cosmos, being the traverse of the sacred life force in devolution through the domains of existence to reach, through spiritual evolution, the level of the human being. That human level once reached, the divine amorphous representative of the Absolute, the Atma that overshadows the human being, can, with the remainder of the principles comprising the human transmigrant, escape the wheel of death and rebirth and return to its unconditioned and unitary state. Thank you for your attention.
And we thank our dear colleague, wonderful classical lecture and explanation. Thank you for being able to stay within the sloka. It is very difficult not to go beyond the material of this stanza of this sloka. Thank you very much, Mr. William Quinn, the Theosophical Society of the United States of America, California. We will be waiting for you impatiently at our next seminars. Dear friends, and now I'm giving the floor to our next lecturer, Ifigenia Kastamoniti, the Theosophical Society of Greece, Athens. Listening to you attentively.
Thank you, Ifigenia. Thank you, Evgenia. Just give me a minute, and if you have my PowerPoint on, please. Okay. So the title of my talk is on hierarchies of builders. In the poem of Secret Doctrine, Volume 1, Elena Blavatsky gives us some guidelines as to how to study the Secret Doctrine. Thus, on page 21, she writes that for us Westerners and our Western mind, the stage described in stanza 2 is so nearly identical with that mentioned in the first stanza that to express the idea of its difference would require a treatise in itself. Therefore, since we are still in the night before the new dawn, as the hour had not struck yet for the new manvantara or the new emanation, it might be necessary in this presentation to go back to Elena Blavatsky's comments on stanza 1. But first, let us see what stanza 2, Sloka 1 has to say. Where were the builders, the luminous sons of a manvantaric dawn? In the unknown darkness, in the Ah-hi Paranishpanna, the producers of form, rupa, from no form, arupa, the root of the world, the Devamatri, or cosmic space, as Svabhavat, rested in the bliss of non-being. Who are then these powers still asleep in the bosom of the father-mother? Can we call them powers or not? Why is there a his state mentioned here? Let us start from the last question. As we have seen in another talk, according to Elena Blavatsky, in the transactions of the Blavatsky Lodge, page 17, the Ah-hi are the primordial seven rays emanated from the first logos. On page 18 of the same work, she also says that they are the highest jnanis, the logi, and those who begin the downward evolution or emanation. Going back to her comments on stanza 1 now, we read on page 38 that the Ah-hi, or Dhyantsohans, are the collective hosts of spiritual beings, the angelic hosts of Christianity, the Elohim and messengers of the Jews, who are the vehicle for the manifestation of the divine or universal thought and will. They are the intelligent forces that give to and enact in nature her laws, while themselves acting according to laws imposed upon them in a similar manner by still higher powers. But they are not the personifications of the powers of nature, as erroneously thought. This hierarchy of spiritual beings, through which the universal mind comes into action, is like an army, a host truly, each contained in a higher individuality to which its own interests are subservient and each containing lesser individualities in itself. So we have hierarchies of spiritual beings, armies, which can be more or less found in other traditions too. For example, Manly Hall, in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, page 25, writes that the entire Gnostic mystery is based upon the hypothesis of emanations between the irreconcilable opposites, absolute spirit and absolute substance, which the Gnostics believe to have been coexistent in eternity. In the Gnostic system, three pairs of opposites called syzygies emanated from the eternal one. From these primordial six, united with the eternal flame, came forth the aeons, who formed the lower worlds through the direction of the demiurgos, the creator, in other words. One of the Gnostics was Valentinus, and his school was founded during the 2nd century of the Christian era in Alexandria of Egypt. According to his teaching, included in Code 3 of the Nag Hammadi scrolls, there are various classes of aeons comprising the pleroma, or fullness, and emanate from the Father, the Propater, or the Deep. The highest ones are called totalities because they are perfect. The diagram you see on slide 4 shows how they were arranged by Valentinus. Now, the Valentinians teach that these beings, namely the Valentinian pleroma, are ineffable and numberless. They always existed in the essence of the deep, or the Father, but only as germ, a notion which reminds us of the secret doctrine, as we shall see further down. Unable to recognize the deep and without knowing it themselves, but after having been emanated, they become capable of conceiving and naming themselves. They comprise the plenitude of the Father, who transfers the quality of fatherhood to them, thus making them fathers also. And then, according to their class, they form the various levels of the invisible and visible world. Regarding the germ mentioned above, we can read Elena Blavatsky's explanations on page 22, 20, 21, 22, Secret Volume 1, where she refers to stanza 4, saying that stanza 4 shows the differentiation of the germ of the universe into the septenary hierarchy of conscious divine powers, who are the active manifestations of the one supreme energy. They are the framers, shapers, and ultimately the creators of all the manifested universe, in the only sense in which the name creator is intelligible. They inform and guide it. They are the intelligent beings who adjust and control evolution, embodying in themselves those manifestations of the one law, which we know as the laws of nature. Generically, they are known as the Tian Chohans, though each of the various groups has its own designation in the secret doctrine. Plato now speaks of the divine ideas, which might be considered as a hierarchy of builders. They are the archetypes or the prototypes, the models by which the demiurge or nous spirit fashions the gods, and they, in their turn, create the visible world. These ideas bring unity in the multiplicity of the sentient beings. They communicate between them, but each one remains within its own essence. They are endowed with power and motion, mind, soul, and prudence, as we read in his work Sophist, section E. And with these qualities, he says in his Philebus 28d, they become the creative powers which form matter. Plato related the ideas with the Pythagorean numbers, which are not the mathematical ones we know, but only principles. Thus, the principles of numbers are the principles of the Platonic ideas. Plato did not include this teaching in his written works, but we can find it in Aristotle's Metaphysics, A 986a and after, and M 1080a and after. So Aristotle calls the father monas and the mother dias, while Proclus, in his comments on Plato's Republic 2:46-47, explains that monas and dias exist before all other numbers, and they are the principles of all. He identifies monas with the notion of perfection and dias with the notion of infinity. He clarifies, however, that both monas and dias emanate from the one, which is the cause of perfection and infinity. In other words, we have the triple logos that is mentioned further on in stanza 2. Numbers as principles are also met in the Sefer Yesirach, or the Book of Formation, referred to by Manly Hall on page 114 regarding the 10 Sephiroth. Chapter 1, number 1, Yah, the Lord of hosts or builders, I will say, the living Elohim, King of the universe, engraved his name and ordained or formed and created the universe in 32 mysterious paths or stages of wisdom or science by 3 seraphim, namely numbers, letters, and sounds, which are in him one and the same. Chapter 1, number 4, 10 are the numbers of the Sephiroth, out of nothing, 10, not 9, 10, not 11. Comprehend this great wisdom, understand this knowledge, and be wise. Chapter 1, number 9, these are the 10 emanations of number out of nothing. First, the spirit of the living Elohim, blessed and more than blessed be the living Elohim of ages, his voice and his word and the Holy Spirit, etc., etc. Or the triple logos, I would say, the highest Ah-hi builders and the first 3 aeons of the Gnostics. Now, Sallustius, the Neoplatonic philosopher of the 4th century, in his work on the gods and the cosmos, also speaks of hierarchies of gods, or shall we say, of builders. On page 4, translated by Thomas Taylor, we read, but of the gods, some are mundane and others supermundane. I call those mundane who fabricate the world. But of the supermundane, some produce essences, others intellect, and others soul. And on this account, they are distinguished into 3 orders. In discourses connecting with orders, it's easy to discover all the gods. But of the mundane gods, some are the causes of the world's existence, others animate the world, Others again harmonize it, thus composed from different natures. And others, lastly, guard and preserve it when harmonically arranged. And since these orders are four, and each consists from things first, middle, and last, it is necessary that the disposers of these should be 12. Let us go back to Manly Hall and his secret teachings of all ages. We're writing on the Egyptian tradition at the Bembin table of Isis on page 59. He hints on the builders by quoting Kitzer, who says, "The throne denotes the diffusion of the triform supreme mind along the universal paths of the three worlds. 7 principal triads corresponding to 7 superior worlds are known in the central plate of the table." And Manly Hall explains on page 60 that the celestial triads are shown by the Egyptians as a globe, the father, from which issue a serpent, the mind, and wings, the power. These 12 forces are the fabricators or builders of the world, and from them emanate the microcosm or the mystery of the 12 sacred animals shown in the table, representing in the universe the 12 parts of the world, and in man the 12 parts of the human body. To this we can compare Elena Blavatsky's words on page 127 and 128 of Secret Doctrine 1, where she mentions divisions of builders of various classes and in relation to other esoteric and religious traditions. There are 3 chief groups of builders and as many of the planetary spirits and the Lipika, each group being again divided into 7 subgroups. It is impossible, even in such a large work as this, to enter into a minute examination of even the 3 principal groups, as it would demand an extra volume. The builders are the representatives of the first mind-born entities, therefore of the primeval Rishi Prajapati, also of the 7 great gods of Egypt, of which Osiris is the chief, of the 7 Amsaspends of the Zoroastrians, with Ormazd as their head, or the 7 spirits of the face, the 7 Sephiroth separated from the first triad, etc., etc. They build, or rather rebuild, every system, and after the night. The second group of the builders is the architect of our planetary chain exclusively, and the third, the progenitor of our humanity, the macrocosmic prototype of the microcosm. Turning to Genesis now, we see that in the opening chapter, it is stated that after creating light and separating it from the darkness, the 7 Elohim divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, that having established the inferior universe in perfect accord with the esoteric teachings of the Hindu, Egyptian, and Greek mysteries, the Elohim then turned their attention to production of flora and fauna, and lastly, man. Here we have another class of builders, another hierarchy which functions at the third stage of manifestation, forming the visible universe. Elena Blavatsky refers to this hierarchy in the 2nd volume of the Secret Doctrine, dealing with anthropogenesis, where she mentions that the nature spirits and the elementals working for the building of the physical world comprise a hierarchy of builders themselves, but of another class. Again, in her comments on Sloka 1, Secret Doctrine 1, page 53, she writes, "The builders, the sons of manvantaric dawn, are the real creators of the universe. And in this doctrine, which deals only with our planetary system, they, as the architects of the latter, are also called the watchers of the 7 spheres, which exoterically are the 7 planets, and esoterically the 7 Earths or spheres, planets of our chain also. She explains this comment in the Blavatsky Lot's teaching, page 46, by saying that the builders are those who build and fashion things into form. The term is equally applied to the builders of the universe and to the smaller globes like those in our chain. And by planetary system, our solar system alone is meant. In concluding, I will quote one more explanation given by Elena Blavatsky in the Blavatsky Lot's meetings. On pages 40 and 41, we read, they are a class called cosmocratores, or the invisible but intelligent masons, who fashion matter according to the ideal plan ready for them in that which we call divine and cosmic ideation. It is in proportion to this quality of the hierarchies or respective planetary builders that they reflect and act upon the ideations they find planned for them in the universal consciousness, which is the real great architect of the universe. I must say here that her explanations are very much in accordance with the other traditions we explored above, and with a lot of others that we won't have the time to explore in this short presentation. So, thank you for listening.
Dear Ifigenia, thank you very much. You have this wonderful talent to gather analytical and scientific material from different sources and apply it to the explanation of the sloka itself. It is historical.
Достаточно интересно посмотреть, каким образом в других философских направлениях, в других философских системах, и в религиях, и в мифологии эта тема, эти понятия
Very important, and this theme and notions may live and get transferred, just like in the Secret Doctrine by Elena Petrovna Blavatsky. Of course, Elena Petrovna gives us a very bright and exact explanation, but your work expands our understanding, and we may draw parallels and conduct our own analytical work. Thank you very much for brilliant study.
мы продолжаем наш семинар.
Dear friends, and we continue our seminar, and our next lecturer is our partner, our incredible, wonderful Miss Helena Foster, the Theosophical Society of the United States of America, Florida. Dear Mrs. Foster, you're welcome with your wonderful lecture. The floor is yours.
Where were the builders, the luminous sons of the manvantaric dawn? In the unknown darkness, in their Ah-hi Paranishpanna, the producers of form from no form, the root of the world. The Devamatri and the Svabhavat rested in the bliss of non-being. Life is a marvelous cosmic game of gathering substance, forming an outline or boundary, living it, observing it, and enjoying it, and then exploding it into a dissolution to begin the process all over again. This is a constant repetitive pattern for learning, evolvement, and growth into the higher spheres and manifestations. Humanity clings deeply to the illusion that each idea or created form is permanent and substantial. This illusion is held by most of us. It borders upon the very faint recollection that we are immortal as the source. And yet we who hold this idea are but shadows, reflections, and dreams of that which is greater than these brain minds of dust can ever perceive. We believe that we will always be the individual we are at this point in our awareness. Consider that 20 years or so ago, the reflection that we see in the mirror before us of our daily life did not exist. And inversely, the reflection of 20 years ago, past, no longer exists as it was. True ideas, loves, hatreds, ideals, and dreams may be relatively unchanged, but the essential personality and physical manifestation have shifted into another mode of growth, expansion, and hopefully greater understanding. In the study of Theosophy and the ancient teachings, it slowly begins and it becomes apparent that no matter what or who or how we perceive anything or manifestation, it is but an illusion on every plane of consciousness and level perception, except the one upon which we are standing. Yet here it is an illusion which has manifested substance through us for our edification, enlightenment, and observation. This forms a pattern which is always enacted, but the results are never repeated. Here it is we find the works of the builders, the luminous sons of manvantaric dawn, and the producers of form from no form. But in this stanza too, at this point in the cycle of the great breath, in the abstract motion of the unknowable one, even they are resting in their type of dreamless sleep. The great breath has inhaled, and the space-time duration between the inhalation and the exhalation is continuing toward its apogee. It reminds one of the void of the moon or the earth in its orbit around the sun. We could reference it to the standing still of the sun at the winter solstice. However, nothing in all infinity stands still. What would be the purpose of a creation of nothingness, as nature always abhors a vacuum and fills every dot in space with life and meaning? Even as humans, if we hold our breath, our blood still runs through our body, our thoughts can still manifest in our minds, cells are still fed, and we exist as long as the spirit of life remains in us and in our body. In our sleep mode, this is still evident. Although we may be unconscious of this physical world around us, here we can see a reflection of this greater cycle of the one, reflected and refracted over and over again, down to our human level. And could we but be aware of it into the cellular, atomic structure and beyond? This beyond, we again meet the builders, the sons of luminous dawn, and the producers of form from no form. They are as forces of infinity, and as we cannot understand this concept as yet, we call them essences and entities. They are as tools of the one, lost in the supra-unconsciousness of pralaya moment. They sleep in bliss and awaken to work again in the field of creation under the direction of that unknowable presence. Perhaps they also dream in the darkness of their Ah-hi, the great Dinashanins, the wise serpents, or the dragons of wisdom, all within the balanced state of harmony of the Great Mother, and held securely and lovingly in the embrace of the Father, the Devamatri and the Svabhavat. To us, the builders are also the real creators of the universe, of which we are most familiar, our planetary system. In our legends from the past, they are the watchers and the holy ones. of the 7 spheres, this being another pattern for reflective explanation of not only our 7 planets, but also as esoterically the 7 Earth spheres or globes of our chain. There is a lot more associated wisdom in this stanza. Aside from the fact that it seems every manifested composite of atoms has disassembled and is sleeping for a duration, that which is manifest has gone through a process of atomic grouping of atoms within substance, or Paranishpanna, that intelligence within substance, which creates the forms and the non-forms, is also subject to the process of dissolution, and it too sleeps. This is as if one had a pocket watch filled with gears and flywheels and jewels and cogs. At a point, it runs down and awaits its owner to reset it and wind it up again in the morning. All these gears and flywheels, jewels and cogs can no more conceive of their owner, human in this case, than these suns and watchers can conceive the essence of the unknowable one. But all are ready to begin a new cycle when the pralaya ceases, the owner awakens, and a new day is begun. The owner of this cosmic watch is not a being, but a state of beingness within the realm of subjectivity, which has no relation to anything but the one absolute truth, Paramartha Satya, on its own plane. From our limited point of view, we can appreciate correctly the full meaning of non-being, which, as explained, is absolute being. Sooner or later, all that now seemingly exists and will be in reality and actuality in the state of Paranishpanna. This rest of bliss is the great day be with us in progress in the state of Paranishpanna. To the ancient Egyptians, it was called the day of come to us. In this sense, the word be might better be expressed with either of the 2 words remain or rest with us, as it refers to that long period of rest, which is called paranirvana. In the exoteric interpretation of the Egyptian rites, the soul of every defunct person, from the Hierophant down to the sacred bull Apis, becomes an Osiris, or was Osirified. With the secret doctrine has always been taught that the real Osirification was the lot of every monad, only after 3,000 cycles of existence. So in the present case, the monad, born of the nature and the very essence of the 7, its highest principle, becoming immediately enshrined in the 7th cosmic element, has to perform its secondary gyrations through the cycle of being and forms, from the highest to the lowest, and then again from man to God. At the threshold of paranirvana, it reassumes its primeval essence and becomes one with the absolute once more. It must not be supposed, as expressed by a lecturer on the Bhagavad Gita, quote, that the Logos is but a single center of energy manifested from Parabrahman. There are innumerable other centers, and their number is almost infinite in the bosom of Parabrahman, unquote. Hence these expressions, great day be with us, and day of come to us. Just as the square is the symbol of the 4, sacred forces or powers, the tetrax, as taught by Pythagoras. So is the circle, shows the boundaries within the infinite that no man can cross, even in spirit, nor Deva, nor Danachoan. The spirits of those who descend and ascend during the course of cyclic evolution shall cross the, quote, iron-bound world only on the day of their approach to the threshold of Paranirvana. If they reach it, they will rest in the bosom of Parabrahman, or the unknown darkness, unquote, which shall then become for them light during the whole period of Mahaprabhaya, the great night, namely 311 quadrillion, 40 trillion years of absorption into Brahma. The day of be with us is this period of rest, or Paranirvana, also known as Paranishpanna. As thinking humans, we consider this huge number of years, the plus 311 quadrillion, and pride ourselves on its delineation and incredible duration. Yet, what does it mean to the flower growing between the cement tiles of our walkway? Does not this flower survive and maintain its existence for as long as it can without consulting the mathematicians and astronomers? It has its own level of consciousness, and we have ours. Both will eventually pass away as each of us evolves. Remember, the secret doctrine refers to humanity as man plants. But here is where we begin to perceive the great difference between conscious and unconscious being. Within this condition of Paranishpanna, there exists an aspect of no bliss, simply extinction for 7 eternities. There also exists an aspect of Paramatha, which is a self-analyzing consciousness. For it is said that only, quote, with a mind clear and undarkened by personality, and an assimilation of the merit of manifold existences devoted to being in its collectivity, which is the whole living and sentient universe, unquote, that one, quote, gets rid of personal existences, merging into and becoming one with the absolute, and continuing in full possession of Paramartha, unquote. Ceaseless eternal breath, which knows itself not. The idea that things can cease to exist and still be. It is a fundamental one in the Eastern psychology. To know correct timing is a skill to be mastered. To become even remotely aware of this concept requires consciousness. HPB states that, quote, consciousness implies limitations and qualifications, something to be conscious of and someone to be conscious of it. But absolute consciousness contains the cognizer, the thing cognized, and the cognition, all 3 in itself, and all 3 are one. Humanity usually refers to absolute consciousness as unconsciousness. We also tend to reference it to darkness because to our finite minds and understanding, it appears quite impenetrable. Obviously, we do it a great injustice. There are many stages and states in sleep, even within our earthbound understanding of it. There is a light sleep, like our pet cat experiences. Aroused, it's fully awake instantly and ready to act. For most of humanity, this reaction, especially in the morning upon arising, is impossible. We frequently press the snooze button on our alarm clocks and we roll over for another 10 minutes. Where do we go in those 10 minutes? Do we continue a dream we were enjoying? Do the great builders? Or do we swoon back into the bliss of nothingness? Do the great luminous sons of manvantaric dawn and the producers of form from no form roll over and fluff their pillows? Do the great dragons of wisdom stretch their essence and dream again? On earth, does our oh so human mind begin to click into function for the day's activities? All these reactions to the alarm are but reflections in human form of divinity. The sun rises as a manvantaric dawn again calls forth these ultimate forces into action. And the breath that knows itself not exhales to begin yet another manifestation of light, experiences on a higher turn of the celestial spiral. Thank you very much for your ever brightening and days of enlightenment to come. May you all have.
Dear Michelina, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Your incredible capacity and talent to work with these notions explained in words, you let us feel them literally, and we feel this life of all this material. This is so precious. You know, there is an expression in Agni Yoga that a flower, in order to make a human happy, is blossoming at the time which is not proper for it to blossom. It is a sign for all of us that the great concept to make another one happy is always higher than to make ourselves happy. Even if flowers and plants are able to do it, the humankind, the humankind consciousness should have reached this point a long time ago. Thank you very much. And now we are welcoming our partner from the South Korea, the Doctor of Philosophy and Professor of the Art School, Mr. Hwang. Mr. Hwang, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm glad with you. Today, I'm going to speak about stanza 2, Sloka 1. The statement you already know about that. The important word here is ah-hi. I think ah-hi. Paranishpanna, you know, the darkness, everything you know. Ah-hi was mentioned many times in the previous books. I mean, the Blavatsky mentioned about that. Next page, please. One word, yeah. I summarize this part as cosmic embryology. This is a science word. If we assume ah-hi is a spectrum of light, I can extend this whole part as the cosmic embryology. The darkness means the absolute being, and ah-hi was the generator of the metaphysical spirit in a cell. The modern words, the chemical changer from energy to spirit. And again, the ah-hi was mentioned as the spectrum of the light in the commentary book of Blavatsky. This means a shadow of a universal mind, evolution generator using law of science. These are all mentioned previously. generating metaphysical spirit, or metaphysical spirit of fullness of emptiness, which is transformed by the mechanical energy generated by the mechanical force of universal mind. This was also mentioned previously. I assume I introduced photosynthesis based on this statement. I is the spectrum of light. I can introduce photosynthesis, birth of life cell. I'll call this embryology. This is a biological terminology. This means generation, not creation. So remind that the eye is a spectrum of light. As a first part, this is the cosmic embryology. At the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang was exploded about 13.8 billion years ago. This is the first time before Big Bang exploded. Since, next page, please. And next page. And after about 9.2 billion years, solar system was made. This is the birth of the sun and planets. I'm telling about the cosmic embryology. The first thing is the start of the solar system, about 4.6 billion years ago from today. It passed 9.2 billion years after Big Bang. And next, please. I have no time, so go fast. And 0.1 billion years later, the Earth was born. And many chemical elements manipulated the atoms and molecules like O2, CO2, etc. for 10 billion years later. It is a long time, 10 billion years, to make manipulations, the molecular and atoms. Next page, please. About from this point, 1 billion before that. This is, I'm going to introduce about photosynthesis. I mentioned previously. This is a modern world, the modern science. By aid of the light, the spectrum of light, the plant, manipulate oxygen, and it's growing with the help of the water, the water. This is today's science. But Blavatsky expected, I'm sure she expected this fact 100 years ago. Next page, please. And now, 1 billion years passed, then the first life appeared, so-called stratomatolite. We can test, we can see in the Shark Bay Ocean of the West of Australia. We can watch this one. This is the first life manipulated by the germ through the photosynthesis I mentioned. It looks like a biology class in high school, but this is the important evidence. We have to know that. This is a very important thing. This is today our universe. This shows today our universe. The dark circle means the today. The white circle means in the future. What about future? Based on the embryology, we expected all humankind will be destroyed, and it will be replaced by something else, not humankind, the human being, not anymore. This is our expectation based on the embryology. So maybe this will be superior, very superior thing. Well, we don't know. Our religion will be destroyed. The humankind may or may not destroyed. But one thing we expect that there will be a very superior replacement in the future. We don't know what thing. I don't know. But there will be. You know, in the future region, there is no time, but there is space. As a part B, does the soul evolve? I mean, is the soul on the evolution too? Well, the question, does the matter have a soul? The answer is yes. I'll prove next slide. We call this Lenz's law. Maybe science or engineer people know about Lenz's law in electricity. It shows the induced current will be given to the opposite direction. The opposite means revenge of the matter soul for survival. Like a human, they have some kind of soul. I'll show that. Yeah, this is the figure, a pair of coils. Coil means a circular line of metal, mostly copper metal. The first coil has the battery, so it will called as the circuit. The second one, there's no power, so it's just a metal, the curved metal. But the first coil provided the magnetic field through the circular region. The magnetic field stretched the second coil, and in the point of second coil, actually the second coil is just a coil, not circuit. The second coil didn't expect it. Second coil wants to be free. So attacking of the magnetic field from the outside, for the protection, the second coil making the induced current for the induced magnetic field to the direction of opposite in order to cancel the incoming magnetic field from the outside. It's like attacking and protection, making a war, something like that, kind of a revenge. Today the human, two nations, one nation attack and the other nation protect. They have a battle, war in reality. It's the same phenomena in the material world. So I believe, next page, please. I believe the matter has a soul also, since the Big Bang exploded about 13.8 billion years ago. So I can have a result, trees, mountains, etc. All kinds of metals have their own soul. So another question, are the current souls existing everywhere? The answer yes, because the charged metals, which are called plasma, have been in the space since Big Bang explored since 13.8 years ago. Also, the light itself is the change from the electric current. As an example, in the hospital, brain soul activity can be detected by the brain waves. Soul change to waves, waves to light change to soul, something like that. These are the connections. So in the Blavatsky book, I is assumed as a light spectrum, then cosmic embryology works. This means the embryology is for the matter, also human as well. Additionally, I have to mention one thing. If we live on the top of the big mountain, maybe the mountain has the soul, I said. So the person will be haunted by the soul of the mountain. That kind is a kind of a gravitational field instead of a magnetic field. If you live under the Empire State Building, you will be haunted by the state building through the gravitational field. If you live nearby the big ocean, you will be haunted by the electrical field through the given by the waters. Thank you very much. This is I prepared today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Huang, thank you very much. You always manage to give us the scientific basis and your thoughts and your findings and Theosophy. You managed to match it all together. Thank you very much for your work. And now I'm going to present you a little lecture presentation where we tried to pay attention to the key moments of this sloka. We tried to reveal them. Maybe it will be kind of a continuation of Mr. Huang's thought, and maybe it will be interesting for him in this regard. So, dear friends, several key points that, of course, everybody mentioned some of them, but we'll try to shed a new light on them and try to uh, talk about the human evolution through them, because the first three stanzas of slokas, the main task of these slokas is to find this order and to apply this order consequently by analyzing to the human consciousness. Where were the builders, the luminous sons of manvantaric dawn? And Helena Petrovna gives the answer. In the unknown darkness in the Ah-hi Paranishpanna, the producers of form from no form, the root of the world, the Devamatri and Svabhavat rested in the bliss of non-being. What is non-being? Is absolute non-being. The state Paranishpanna at this moment of the sloka, and it is not the majority, but the extinction or fading of seven eternities. Here, Yelena Petrovna gives us the whole cycle, how the state of non-being at the completion state is in this sloka, in the state of fading. When it happens? It happens when we have a non-duality. This notion of non-duality, which is in this period of non-being, is defined by Advaita, which is the one existence without the second. Then Yelena Petrovna tells us that behind all these things that are divided in globes and the phenomena of the manifested world, there is one indivisible matter, which is the cosmic consciousness. And now, when we're talking about something that did not exist, and the manvantaric dawn and the pralaya completion, we may talk about the non-manifested cosmic consciousness. Who manifests this consciousness? First of all, they are builders. The builders were in the young organic stage of completing the full meaning of non-being or absolute being. Now, according to the planes of being, we may see that it was the seven-ray star, which is on the plate of deities, gods, non-manifested plane, and it shows us where the builders were at that point, because they are the luminous suns defined by Blavatsky. Who are these luminous suns? They are seven rays. That's why they are luminous. In the dawn of Manvantara, there was darkness, and these suns were beyond, were inside this darkness, and they are breathing. Ah-hi breathing. When Manvantara begins, they will start the movement, or they will start breathing, or just simply they will start to inhale and exhale. And now the state of Paranishpanna as the state of completeness of the great cycle of Pralaya. And we may talk about the luminous suns when they are in the stage of Paranishpanna. They're also in the state of completion of the great circle. So the key moment of this sloka is the description of the transition from the end of completion of Pralaya, which corresponds to the beginning of Manvantara manifestation. This is the simultaneous movement of two periods. What does it mean? It means that the second and third stanzas describe sixth and seventh periods of pralaya completion, and second and third periods before the Manvantara begins, and their states before differentiation. And we may talk about the simultaneous action of two forces, completion and beginning of the new cycle, pralaya and Manvantara, when they merge together in the evolutionary state of potentiality of action. That's why the complete pralaya does not exist, because the evolution does not stop, never. And this is why this is a cycle inside another cycle. It's a continuous fading at the beginning of new. Let us see how we can define these states. It's sixth and seventh periods of the pralaya completion or ending of fading. These are the periods of fading that correspond to second and third description and stanzas, and second and third periods of the beginning of Manvantara corresponding accordingly in the same state of sixth and seventh period of completion. These are the simultaneous merging of what is described in the sloka. So if we're talking about the creators of the forms, and we're talking about the seven ray star in the plane of minor creativity, out of no forms, and no forms are the plane of gods, the first seven ray star, the root of the world, Devamatri, which is in the prototype plane, and divine the plane of spirit without a form. All of them were resting in the bliss of non-being. The root of the world is defined as the mother of Sephiros. Basically, it is a veil. It's corresponding to the veil of Mura Prakriti in its form, predominant form. This is the state of mother, father, who are the spiritual essence of the world substance, the cosmic space. The spirit and matter of the higher plane rested in nothingness. Of course, Svabhavat as the universal substance rather than stands behind it. And we can talk about uh, the spirit that it is not a real substance, but the essence of this substance and spirit of this substance, its potential manifestation, the plane of spirit beyond forms, where Paranishpanna exists, the spirit and the essence of this substance. All nature comes from it and goes back to it in the end of the life cycle. This is the second stanza talking about the first impetus of the differentiation of the space, which will bring us to differentiation. The fifth plane, fifth plane is a plane of mind, creativity, and logos, and Devamatri, uh, who are the potentiality of the essence, and all this was resting in the state of nirvana, in non-being. So now we can visualize that the second stanza told us about the first impetus of the second stanza, the first seven ray star, and they provide us with this impetus for the future differentiation of space of the absolute. And on the plane of mind and creativity leads to creation of the second seven ray star. This is the second creative logos. These are the builders of form, as we see on the planes of being, how the builders beyond form and within form act, and where the root of the world is, and Sabhavat. So the key point, the second stanza of the first sloka corresponds as a sum, 2 plus 1 makes 3. So when the union of the three is accomplished, then each of the three is reflected in two, and each of the two manifests itself in every third and constitutes one in it. The phenomenon uh, is that each of two manifests in the third. And leaves in every one of them one whole state. And this one is the phenomenon of its genius. This is how we have the point or the state of whole monada in its potentiality of the future manifestation. This is how the cell divides itself. So the first is Sabhavat. Out of three states is the spirit and essence of substance. Second state is the root of the world, the Devamatri. The third state is the luminous suns, the builders and producers of form from no form, the Ah-hi Paranishpanna. This is how we have the union of this third. And the key point is we may say that by this way of formation by these states, the fettering embraces of Maya in the evolution of the uh, human consciousness. This is how we get our freedom from the Maya, when we can have the three triple key. And the point is finding this triple key in this sloka. The triple key is the way to get rid of the limitations of Maya. Triple key, when the student has it, they can open this wonderful door uh, and which leads to the great synthesis, which we call life. This triple threefold evolution of matter, the substance, and soul developing at the same time simultaneously and yet completely independently. It is only necessary to establish a relationship between them in order to comprehend their unity. This vibrational pulse or keynote of each plane has a special character and a special tonality or a way of movement. On the physical plane, this movement is slower than on the astral or spiritual plane. But what is tonality? Tonality is first of all a sound or the completion of notes, a gamma that further on becomes the seven basic notes of music, or seven sounds, because spiritual essence is created by this tonality. And what is tonality? Tonality is the way of moving. The vibration is so high that we cannot perceive it. The great spirits study it using the analogies, tonality as a way of movement. You can hear the notes of music, the whole spectrum. On the plane of spirit, there is no other form. There are only wonderful sounds of music and color and creative fire, which transforms, changes, and eliminates the reasons of rebirth created on different planes. We have to consider two poles, this double pole reality. Uh, when the vibration gets the highest speed and becomes the absolute movement, which is absolute peace. It might seem as a paradox, yes, yet it is the truth. So the key moment is that the person cannot understand their own nature because we cannot neglect ourselves, we cannot go beyond ourselves and see us impersonally. As a matter of fact, we all the time only consider only one part of ourselves and the lowest on the evolutionary scale. So to understand our own nature, we have to strive for the highest, and then we can see our qualities from impersonal point of view, impartially, or we have to rise the note of our consciousness. Thus, the evolution of human rises this key note of every plane, and all the transformation of matter through all the humanity leads to spiritual development. When the human rises from one plane to another, higher plane, they master the planes, the atoms. Thus, every race achieves the perfection when all the matter becomes spiritual. So, all the entities and the essences evolve this way on earth. The evolution rises the note, the keynote, by opening the possibility for the person to move forward. Because in the evolution, there are no stops, because the matter, substance, force, strength are developing continuously, and all the developed persons are self-conscious beings. They understand their connection with the earth as a live being. You see, they do not worship it, but they consider it as a big brother. In the same way, the importance to apply this uh, triple key to every action in life, because the triad of the soul will unfold in them. Whatever it is, matter, substance, soul, it is the same as matter, force, and uh, consciousness. The substance is, first of all, the power, the force. And it is very important when we are talking about the substance, which englobes the matter of Svabhavat, we are talking about the potential power. When we're talking about this triad of the matter that we have just revealed as the substance of soul, which will imminently reveal when the evolution starts, how will we be able to apply it to the branch of the human evolution? Uh, what can help us? A great book, an article by Yelena Ivanovna Rorik. How can we work with it to apply this knowledge to action? Three keys. This is how it is called. These three keys are not on different galaxies or planets. They are in ourselves. Their names are love, beauty, and knowledge. Remember these paths, follow them, and point them out to others, because in every action, uh, in every act, we can show mobility, love, and prudence. Choose good friends and multiply good qualities in communication with them. Read uh, good books to create wonderful plans and ways in harmony to everything around you. Develop firmness and consistency in yourself, and do not entertain yourself while working. Let your speech be clear, intelligible, and concise. Leave the place where there's empty chatter, where there is an anger and hatred. Be Don't be fidgety. Eradicate the lie. Be honest and friendly. Develop a wiser sides of yourself. Be balanced in pleasure and in suffering, in joy and sorrow. And only by this we can overcome the anger. Your thoughts are your children, and you ought to make each of them beautiful. Thoughts should be creative and truthful. Otherwise, you cannot be devoted in important work. Life and love are powers that create everything in this universe. Life is a power that rules this world, and whatever is done for love, because it is the power of the world law. Only with love to everything you can overcome the evil. Bring love to everywhere you go, and you will understand how it helps you in all your ways. Be pure and let love be flown through you, just as the sand flows from a flower. Make a firm and unwavering decision to become an expression of love and willingness to help wherever you can do it to others. This treasure of the common good, which Yelena Ivanovna tells us about, that we should find it in our soul, the diamonds that we may put into this treasury. This treasury should be transparent as a ray, and it should be transcendent as a white light which cannot be measured because by it is made of transparent light. What happens then? Light and darkness, heat and cold, God, devil, evil and good, whatever we can imagine, everything are thoughts that are inside our mind. The only unique, which is self-conscious, how I am embodied in everybody who are here now and manifest to us through the white light in all different lights and feelings to those that we maybe have cannot recognize anymore in our dear ones as ourselves. The names of these three are love or Sabhavat, its beauty, or the root of the world to Devamatri, and the knowledge, or the builders, the luminous suns. While they were resting in the bliss of non-being, the cycle will come when they get manifested, and it depends on the human how we will keep the transparency of every one of them. This is how the Dhyan text, which predefines this movement, where were the builders, the luminous sons of Manvantara. It predefines the main key point. This sloka is the triple key, which means potential state that will give a possibility to keep this transparency of the state of Paranishpanna and triad, which will, in its next manifestation, provide us with this key for everyday actions. It is perception, understanding of the being in our dance world. Thank you very much for your attention. And now we would like to sum up our today's seminar and share your comments. Just a couple of words about the conclusions of the seminar. What did you like? What you found most important today in our scientific seminar? We have Andrei Narendran from India, Mumbai. Mr. Narendran, please, you're welcome. The floor is yours, and share with us your feedback.
Hello, everybody. It's been an excellent understanding of the stanza 2, sloka 1. We had Brother Quinn talk of ideation and differentiation. Then we had Ifigenia talk about how it is connected with the Torah and the Neoplatonic ideas. Then we had Sister from America, Sister Foster, who spoke about the proportions, the geometry of no being. And then very interestingly, we had Brother Huang talk to the soul. See, this is a very important aspect. He talks to the soul in matter. In fact, if you read the Theosophical wisdom, it says even stones have an intent to evolve. That is the reason they become plants. So what he says is very much true, that souls have, stones also have, and stones and all kind of materials have the soul, which is not visible to the human perception. So I think that's a very important point he made. And in fact, the evolution of a stone into a plant kingdom happens because it has a soul. And also to Brother Huang, we have Vastu Shastra in India, I think you should go through it. It's almost echoing your thoughts, Brother Huang. Vastu Shastra. Okay. Now, I already covered all the points, but I thought I should cover certain important connect of these words Manvantara and Pralaya, because they all originate in Sanskrit. So many of you may not know how the entire etymology has developed. It will give you a lot of connect with it. See, actually in Sanskrit it is Manavantar, although we call in English Manvantara. In Sanskrit we pronounce it Manavanta. So Manu plus Anta. Manu is the archetype. We all know the concept of it. And Anta in Sanskrit means difference. So what is this difference between Manu and Anta? In the Shastras, we have, which Blavatsky also mentions, Seminar The Secret Doctrine about Narada Purana and the Brahma Puranas. In fact, these are the sources of this concept itself. See, the Brahma Puranas, the Narada Purana, the Vishnu Puranas, what you talked about, the triad of creation, preservation, and destruction. So in those Puranas, a very clear mention is made about proportions we all talked about. And it's what's very fantastic is very much in sync with Brother Wang. Blavatsky obviously got entire wisdom transferred from the adepts. That's one part of it. The other part of it, she has been decoding it. The kind of decoding Blavatsky has done is amazing. Even I do not think in one lifetime we can do it at all, because when I go into one, see yourself understanding in one standard, we spend 2 hours, and how many angles of perception we could see in that, and still we're not finished. There's so much deep to be studied in that subject. So I was trying to give the missing links here, how the terminologies of Sanskrit will bring in more meaning to the entire concept of what we discussed. So this is not only scientific, it has geometry, it has astronomy merged in it. So this 432,000 years of one yuga is calculated almost as though it was done on a page. How it is possible? It was all done to intuition, to clairvoyance, through obviously, and these clairvoyants can measure timelessness, spacelessness through their intuition again. It's not the kind of logic or intellect that we think of, because we already extended to a certain frontier. Of course, the frontier is moving further and further, but very gradually. But these people, like the adepts and Blavatsky, were able to see much beyond. That's what we're trying to do here. That's what Huang, when he said, I was amazed that he was trying to bring in how scientific theory exactly talks of what we are talking about. So I'm very glad. And the way Sister Ifigenia winded up the talk was fantastic. How was it fantastic? Because these concepts, okay, they are explained technically, they're explained to you, decoded verbally, textually, etymologically, fine. But then what is the essence? The essence, she talks of the 3 keys. The 3 keys of Ms. Elena Rorik talks of is the essence. This is the essence that we try to imbibe. This is the essence that grows in us as we do these studies, and this is the energy that is being formed. The energy that we form here in a group of 41 people today, whatever, is the energy which is going to build this human consciousness forward. And this is going to ideate. It's not only 41 people. In fact, it is said these groups of satsangs and these groups of wisdom schools may be a handful, but they ideate and radiate to the entire universe where the evolution takes place. So I don't want to give a big lecture. I'm sorry, I'm not a speaker today, but I thought I should try to connect the dots, as they say. Thank you very much. We'll have more opportunity to discuss and evolve more deeply into the subject. Thank you and good night to you.
Thank you so much for your kind words. This knowledge is very important. These seminars and congresses are quite unique because we can find different ideas in one single informational field. And I think it's really important. Here we also have a professor from Sergei Pavlovich Rashubkin. Can you please share a couple of ideas What would you say about the beginning of this year, about this stanza? Dear friends, I would like to add a comment from the point of view of physics, especially to Mr. Huang presentation and Mrs. Kastamoniti. We see a really important philosophical and physical problems here. We have a fundamental division here from invisible things that we cannot understand and cover with our consciousness. Modern physics actually proves that discoveries of the quantum physics proved these predictions. And from the point of view of the modern physics, all the relations that we have, that we discovered, actually are explained by the relations between particles that we cannot observe. They are present on another plane, but due to their physical properties, due to the physical laws, these particles, these invisible particles, plays a crucial role in our life. And I think that it is really important. It means that modern science proves theosophy. I would also want to say that we have some issues in the explanation. I can give you one example. The time of life of our universe, as Mr. Huang mentioned, our universe exists for 14 billion years. Yet, this time might be considered as something big, but it is nothing in comparison with 311 quadrillion. It's incomprehensible. Even if we consider all the stages, we had the first invisible stage, yet these two numbers cannot be compared. They are hugely different. So, according to science, actually, according to the modern science, our universe exists for 4.5 billion years. But in point of view of theosophy, it's one day of manvantara. But the Earth is in the fourth circle, which means that it exists less than 1.5 billion years. We cannot compare this 4.5 billion with 1.5 billion. In my opinion, scientific estimation might not be too precise, actually. It's some elements, according to that, we estimate this. We cannot extend them to such numbers. We still do not fully understand how heavy chemical elements appeared, that we have in quantities more than quantities of iron. Thank you so much for your kind words. Just can you say how periods are determined if they are eternal? In any period, actually, is explained by the development of errors of our consciousness. So it doesn't matter whether we are in the fourth or in the seventh circle. It's not important. Now I would like to give the floor to the member of the French Theosophical Society, Brigitte Takin. She is from Paris. If she can, we would like to give you the floor in conclusion of this seminar. Brigitte Takin, Theosophical Society of France.
Hello,
please.
Everybody. And
Привет, дорогая Бриджит, слушаем тебя.
I was very pleased to see all these people contributing to expanding the knowledge of the secret doctrine, which is a real need in our times, where everybody's thinking about all these pandemic problems and so on. And it was very good to see all these people giving their point of views and with nice pictures of Ifigenia. I'm really thankful to the Adamant Lord to give us the opportunity to attend such sessions, because as Ifigenia said before, it is very rare to have so many people gathered around such a huge thing as the Secret Doctrine. HPB said the Secret Doctrine was written to expand our intuition, and together I think we try to do a huge work which is beneficial to all mankind. Thank you very much for all your helps.
Bridget, thank you so much for your kind words, for attending our session. Thank you so much for finding time to attend such sessions. These sessions that gather so many people, we have an opportunity to create something, to find new understanding and extend our understanding and knowledge. It's a great opportunity to raise some questions, to rethink our understanding. It's an amazing opportunity to develop our consciousness. Now I would like to give the floor to Tejori Ambori, Indian Theosophical Society. Say us a couple of words. What would you think about that?
Namaste to all. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Today we have discussed the idea of differentiation, stanza 2 and sloka 1. The idea of differentiation is very much important and very much clearly explained by all the participants, and I'm very thankful to you for giving me a good insight into this and to understanding this idea of differentiation. The idea of differentiation can be explained that it is the difference between not and being. Not and being. So not is what that is not existent. Being is what which is existent. So the difference is being explained here very clearly. So manvantaric dawn, ah-hi can be explained as our breathing, the inhalation and the exhalation, and the unknown darkness, and manvantaric dawn, we may experience the manvantaric dawn daily in our sleep. And the Devamatri, the primordial being, is being explained by the many religions, many civilizations as the women power, Devamatri. That is what they have explained, because I just trying to explain in simple words. Devamatri can be understood as the women power, because the coming era is completely by the women power, and the women has got the loving and caring nature. That is how we can see the primordial power from which the entire creation has come as the women power. So that is how we can approach to understand the stanzas. And the Dhyani Buddhas are the seven sons. Seven sons can be understood as 7 aspects of our life. That is the Svabhavat, rested in the bliss of non-being. So from the non-being to the being, that is the idea of differentiation, very well explained in this sloka. And it is very much important that the Rupa level and the Arupa level has to be clearly understood, and the formless energies have to be understood, experienced, and bring it to into your living life. How can we deal with the formless levels? We are very much attracted to the form, the ideas, the ideations, the ideals. What is that beyond the ideas? What is that beyond the energies? Energy follows thought. That wonderful principle can be understood, and this is how we can approach the secret doctrine and understand each and every stanza and practice it in our daily life to develop our wonderful character and being a servant to the humanity and service to the humanity by exploring the Jnana Yajna, the Theosophical Society of Russia is doing, the Jnana Yajna, which is the most important thing, as the Krishna has told in Bhagavad Gita, the spreading of knowledge to each and every person of the humanity. In that way, the society Russians doing very well, very good work, and I appreciate, and I'm very fortunate to be in the group and sharing the knowledge and learning so many things. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Большое
Namaste,
спасибо,
namaste.
господин.
Thank you very much, Mr. Onkoli. Thank you for your participation. And we are giving the floor to Anahata Lodge, Moscow, Russia. Konstantin Zaitsev, just a couple of words from you. Thank you for being with us today from the very beginning till the end. Please share your impressions. Yes, hello, dear friends. I would like to be brief and thank all the participants because I'm a little bit ill today. I'm not going to be long, just a little point. I think maybe we shouldn't have paid that much attention to the materialistic concept of the Big Bang because there are different approaches to this. But all this is very interesting. Thank you, all of you. Oh, thank you very much for your feedback, and we wish you the soonest getting better. So the last word from the President Vladimir Vasilyevich Yari, Sediment Lodge. Thank you very much, dear participants. I would like to go to different level of quality. As I am working together with Evgenia Mikhailovna by the schools that studied the secret doctrine and all this teaching, the experience suggests that 3-minute talk is way more precious than 2 hours lecture. And this point is crucial. That was taken also from the 3 keys by Elena Ivanovna Rerik. She's telling about this formula. From the lecture, we should leave this format and go to the conversation. Why? Because the conversation, the talk, always provides for a very concise and precise observation, analysis of some point which interests us. One question that is crucial for us, vital, being transcribed in the secret doctrine, for example, and according to this, we work around this notion. It's like we're going inside it, we are piercing this essence, and working together, we create these conditions. The school and its format
самого себя. Вот это очень важно.
lets us study ourselves. This factor is very important. When we study ourselves, when we learn ourselves by learning the stanzas, we find Ah-hi, because Ah-hi as an essence of the perpetual movement of life, Ah-hi themselves, in ourselves is just inhalation and exhalation. And this Trinity tells us the following. There was no pralaya, no great pralaya exists. There is a process of constant eternal life. And the eternity or immortality is in this. Our conscious and our spirit is eternal. We just hold it. And according to this eternity, we are just breathing. And this eternity is breathing in us. This is why we do not notice our breathing before we get sick. You see, this point is very interesting. we take these eternal laws and we see them alive in us, but we do not pay attention to them because our attention, especially our intellectual attention, is made so that we think about abstract things that we accept in ourselves through our illusionary vision as the most precious one, but it is not the most precious what we have. The most precious is when we apply, and here the intuition comes in play, the perspication of our mind, the creative process. This is a very important detail. So this is my conclusion of our seminar. Thank you very much for everything, for participation, for being here. Thank you very much. Of course, we are moving towards starting to go deeper, because now we've had an experience of talking to each other and creating this image in our minds, and the moment will come when we'll be able to deepen the notions, deepen the understanding. When it happens, when we feel the unity, when we feel united with our state and between all of us together. This is a preliminary stage. That's the concise model of speech becomes like a diamond, and we need to find the key moments for this. The key moment, the key point, when we find it in us, of course, it manifests just at once. We may talk about any notion, not by quoting, but how we feel it, based on our experience of it, how we manifested it. And in these terms, of course, these are the seminars of the future. We are moving towards it. And if we start with the year with this wonderful, great thought that at some point it will come true, we launch this thought, and when the thought is launched in the space, it can manifest itself. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for your questions in chat. We will use them to create the philosophical quiz to define better the notions of the sloka. We thank our interpreters who were with us and working and trying to convey the thoughts and helped us to understand each other and hear each other. Thank you all the philosophical, scientific speakers and all the group. Our speakers were so great. Their work is precious. Every one of you is precious to us, and we love you. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you for working for the philosophical development, for the good of the whole world and humanity. We thank you, and it is easy to be together when we think the same way, when we think together. See you soon on the 26th of February. Light and love to you all. I wish you all the best. Take care of yourself, and we are looking forward to seeing you in February. The best wishes of the great year. Goodbye.
The Secret Doctrine by Blavatsky. Dedicated to all true Theosophists. Book of the Third Millennium.
Blavatsky, only new.